The federal grant that's has a pass-through with the state. The first 3.2 for $154,875 is really to support the preschool portion of our special education programming. Again, right now, for the most part, you'll see that it's staff, a couple of paraprofessionals and 3 paraprofessionals and benefits that we primarily pay for through this grant to support the program.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions on this? I had none either. Let's go on and move to the big one.
Yep, the big one, same thing. Again, this is the big grant for our students. Again, with the designation of any child with a designation of a disability up and through the age of 22, 3 to 22. This really, again, the grant, the big buckets for the grant are the personnel, support personnel, the benefits, and then also contracts. And you'll see one of those contracts today. You've seen me here before. Many of those things are things related to things like nursing support, speech and language. But again, the big portion of the grant is really to support personnel that support students with disabilities.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this? I'll just note that this is also one of those that while the bulk of the funds come into the district, this is also, some of this is designated for non-public schools. So I'm trying to remember, are we acting as a pass-through for those funds, or is this help fund some of the costs for like the charters and that?
No, nothing. No, and I will just speak at some point in time, Mr. Wilcox, there has been some information regarding charter school that we should share, but this is not that. This is not about charter schools. This is really about non-public schools and really, you know, how we provide some support, some consultation service, and also some oversight of, you know, even an evaluation process for them, and some slight money for some like resources and materials and supplies is what that's for in the non-public schools.
All right, and whenever you wish to have a discussion item related to the other, just please let the superintendent and Ms. DeMayo know, and we will slot that in.
Yep.
All right, hearing nothing else on this, let's go ahead and move on to, so that was for abstracts 3.2 and 3.3. So we'll move into 3.4, which is Alliance Increasing Educator Diversity Grant. Ms. Diggs? Is she available? Or is there someone who can speak to that?
Yes, she's coming over.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, make sure she's there.
Hi, everyone. I'm here.
Welcome.
Thanks. So quick overview, we have per the Alliance grant, we have what's called essentially like a setback or a holdback. It's $265,000 that we need to spend earmarked particular to increasing educator diversity. So we have a plan where we are going to use these funds for a few things within that realm. There are a lot of restrictions and parameters in terms of how we can use the funds, but we are primarily partnering with CREC around the Connecticut Teacher Residency Program to employ 2 of our current employees as resident educators next year as they pursue their teacher certification. And then also going to be entering into an agreement with Teach for America to place up to 11 diverse teacher candidates in the district. So will be the bulk of the funds will be used for those 2 things. And then we are also earmarking a little bit of funding to support any employee who is engaged in a certification program leading to teacher certification. So that's the very quick overview of how we plan to spend these funds.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this from the committee? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, just if you could repeat the last thing you mentioned in terms of personnel who are already pursuing education programs. You said the funding is for all of them?
Sure. So we have a little bit left over after the two big agreements that we'll be entering into, or hope to, with your approval, the Board of Ed approval, will be entering into. And then we have a little bit left over that we will use for employees who are already enrolled in certification programs to just support with their tuition costs.
Thank you. And do we have, do you already know kind of what investment areas yield kind of really strong results for our district in terms of increasing faculty and staff diversity?
That's a big question. Yeah, I mean, not to keep you here all night, but I think that, you know, when we think about particularly, I mean, I think about the two people who are doing the Connecticut Teacher Residency Program. These are folks who have been employees of the district for a while. One of them actually applied to the program last year, was accepted, and decided she could have gone into another district that partnered with them at the time. And she said, no, I'm so committed to New Haven. I'm not doing this program unless I can stay in New Haven. So in terms of success, like we are looking, both of these employees will stay in their current schools and be mentored very closely. They have relationships in the building. These are members of our community who want to remain members of our community. So it's just ensuring deep partnership with the program and following them and providing them with the support that they need to be successful. I see Tiffany's hand up. I was actually going to, before I saw that, say Tiffany has had a lot of success leading a partnership already with Southern around supporting paraprofessionals to earn, teaching certification in special education. And I think that the key pieces of success to those programs have been deep partnership and feedback and collaboration with the university. Tiffany, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or if your hand was raised for a totally different reason.
No, I was just going to say that that's a piece of what we've been doing too, is the partnership that we've had with we have about 10 folks who actually, we have some folks who've already been hired through residency, through the Southern program. We've been longstanding either paraprofessionals or behavioral specialists in the district. So we're seeing success and we're seeing people who are committed to New Haven.
Part of the agreement, last thing I'll say, because part of the agreement is they do need to stay in the district for 3 years after completing the program.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll just also add that if you all want to ever have this as a discussion item to kind of have a broad overview of all the different programs and possibilities for helping people finish their degrees and then their certifications, happy to create space for that. And I guess it would just be probably in your case, a conversation with Ms. Flegler and the superintendent, and also keeping Ms. DeMeo in the loop so that we can get that slotted in. I also know that you were involved in the strategic planning and that there's an item or two that we just that was just presented last week that's also related to some other efforts in this area. So anytime you want to highlight this, very happy to create the space.
Thank you.
All right. And I'd say, just to say that, you know, sometimes, even though I know that there's things that are in place, sometimes staff don't know all the possibilities or believe that they could do it or that they could access it. So, you know, anything we can do to help continue that. I know, want to just continue to keep getting the word out. So be helpful in any way we can. All right, thank you very much. And that was the last of the abstracts. So we'll move into purchase orders. And the first one is purchase order under the TIPS USA contract for K-3 Universal Assessment Materials. Ms. Toussaint.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. This is for a state-approved universal assessment for our students in grades K through 3. Every student in grades K through 3 would be assessed using this screener 3 times a year. Currently, we use a portion of the DIBELS. We use 2 subtests, phoneme segmentation fluency and oral reading fluency. This would give us the entire DIBELS 8 suite, which is far more comprehensive and what the state is expecting and requires. of all districts. So it's a more comprehensive assessment in telling us how our students are doing with foundational literacy so that we can better plan for the delivery of instruction for their needs.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions connected to this from the committee? My question is one just based on the funding source. So this is listed as our ESSER carryover account. And so I'm just so my understanding is that this would be able to pay for this and be able to use this for the entire year. This isn't something that's going to end September 30, right?
That's my understanding. Yes, we're asking that we would be able to pay for it now, and it is a license that we would have for the entire year.
Okay, so it'd be that for the entire fiscal year, and then it'll be interesting to see how we pay for it after that if it's continued to be deemed useful. Ms. Hannett?
Yes, that was going to be my comment. I just picked it up just now where it went to June 25th. And the ESSER has, I think, 90 days for liquidation. So it would have to be paid prior to December 31st of this fiscal year.
Okay, but it would already be paid by that point, and then we'd have the use of it through the fiscal year.
Correct.
I see. Great. All right. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilcox, I have a question.
Please, Dr. Yarbrough.
Thank you. Is there an option, and are we interested in a multi-year contract that we would pay for upfront, or is that not how this works?
We're in the last. Oh, I'm sorry. We're in the last year of the funding for our ESSER, so you can't obligate out after that period of time. While you can still receive the services, you can't obligate any more of the money going into another fiscal year.
And we couldn't pay for 2 years up front.
Nope.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a nice try, though.
I know. I'm trying to work every angle.
Every angle is what's needed in these fiscal times, that's for sure. All right, well, hearing nothing else on that, we'll go ahead and move on to purchase order 4.2. This is under CREC, and this is for FMX, the work order system. Dr. Finley?
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. So yes, this is the FMX work order system, new work order system that we invested in this school year. This school year, we have been focused on the professional learning, capacity building to be able to implement the software at a high level. The cost that you see here in this particular document is for next year's, the cost for us for next year as it relates to the services. Right now, the ABM team and staff, they're in training. We look to do full implementation July 1 as it relates to the full implementation throughout our district for the new work order system. Our goal is to increase efficiencies, and this is the vehicle that one of the vehicles we're looking to do that with.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? And then I'll just add as a recap, if I remember correctly, the board approved this a couple months ago, and it was for the startup costs, conversion costs over onto the new system, and then also use of the system through June 30. And then, so this is for the next year. And as I looked it up, I think it was not too much more money over what we were paying for the startup costs and for the portion of this year. So it seems to be in line with what we were told. So, all right, hearing nothing else on this, we'll move on into the agreements. 5.1 is with Tiffany Beach for speech language remediation.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah, Dr. King Harrell or
Oh no, it'll be me. Sorry.
I'm
Sorry,
still-
they put it'll be me. Sorry about that. That's what I was wondering. But again, this is for our speech and language contract for one of our service providers. I think I mentioned it while I'm here, that it's a #1 national shortage area, so we have to be reliant on contractors. The amount is what it is because we also have this contractor working in our extended school year summer program as well. But this is again to provide mandated speech and language services.
Right, thank you. Comments or questions? The only thing I'll add is maybe we could have some innovative HR connected programs to help people move into this area.
Yeah, we actually, the folks who managed, just as a point, Mr. Wilcox, the folks who actually helped to develop the residency program at SCSU, we were in talks with them about speech and language as well. So they actually have that on the agenda to see if there's a way for us to also do something similar with speech and language pathologists in the future.
Great, thank you. All right, hearing nothing else on that, we will move on to 5.2, which is an agreement with Pediatric Services of America. Ms. Jackson.
Yep. This is again for a mandated service. These are, we are having more and more cases of students who require one-to-one nursing care. So this is for services for a kiddo who has very, very complex medical needs. We're happy that we're able to service students in district. But in order to service them, this is a student right now who requires individualized medical care.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions connected to this? All right, I had none either. We'll move on to 5.3, an agreement with Autism Health and Fitness Center.
Yep, this is an agreement. We have Autism Health and Fitness Center, who they work with us in our extended school year program during the summer and throughout the year. They work with many of our specialized classrooms enough to be able to provide adaptive physical health for our students. So again, it's not the traditional physical education, but again, giving it back that some of our children may not be ambulatory or may have some significant, sensory needs. They really do focus on adapting physical education for our students in our specialized classrooms.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the committee? Dr. Yarbrough. You're muted.
Thank you. Just one, I'm looking at the first page of the document, and under the hourly day or per session rate, it just lists going into July 2024. But I think, do we want 2025 dates there as well?
Yeah, we should. I'll make sure.
I mean, the
Sorry,
agreement dates are running from July 2024 to June 2025, but just below that where it has the breakdown of
Got it.
where it's going. So it's not a big thing. Okay.
I'll make sure to get that changed. Thank you.
Yes, and it also looks like that there's it's also listing August 28th, 2023 to June 30, 2024. So that looks like a typo or a holdover from a previous version of this.
Yep.
So if that could be corrected and this information reposted in the next day or so, that would be appreciated. And Ms. Hannons, you had your hand up.
Yes, just one correction. I just saw it on 5.2. There looks like there's a typo. Should be 2504. Is that, and it says 5032?
5034.
Okay.
Okay, so for 5.2, that agreement with Pediatric Services of America, it's a typo in the account number.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it looks like it.
Okay, so if that could be corrected and reposted, that would also be appreciated. I think it's a typo in the description. It's only in the description where the account number is listed.
Yep.
It is correct on the documentation. It's just incorrect on the
Document.
description on the agenda. Thank you for catching that, Ms. Hannons. So when we move that, it's with that, the correction to the item there. Okay, hearing nothing else on this, we'll move on to 5.4, which is year 3 of the multi-year agreement with Connecticut Association for Performing Arts. Dr. Finley.
Yes, this is for theater management services. This is a renewal. In CAPTA, they also manage the Schubert, which provides the link between co-op and Schubert to be able to collaborate, where they're able to also benefit from students getting professional instruction from actors at times. So just looking to move this forward.
Right, thank you. Comments or questions from the committee? I'll just note that this was a designated sole source by the city purchasing office. Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, I was just wondering about the sole source. I'm trying to see what makes this a sole source. This is the company that also manages the Schubert. What I'm thinking about is if this is renewal 3, I don't know if this is the last renewal, but it sounds like we won't be going out to bid for it, but that it's a sole source. So we're going to take whatever they come back to us with in terms of the cost. And so I'm curious about where maybe the competition can come in terms of what we're able to invest for this relationship. So do we know whether this is the company that manages the Schubert, and then in that case, I recognize why it's a sole source?
I'll just jump in before Dr. White, is that it's designated sole source because that's what the purchasing officer has designated as. But to your second question, page 6 of the documentation lays it out that with the prices for all the years between the 22-23 school year up to the 26-27 school year.
7 now, okay.
So I think it would be that there would have to be another opportunity sometime during the 26-27 school year to rethink this, find other vendors, but I think we're in the middle of this. I think this is a true contract, multi-year contract that had to have been approved by the alders as well, not just a potential one with renewals. But Dr. White?
Yes, COPPA has been the source working with co-op over the years. It is part of the relationship with between the Schubert and co-op. They actually end up managing spaces both within co-op, the black box space, and the theater within co-op. Manages all of the bookings that occur, the use of the building. It's part of that shared agreement. So it's specifically for the contract, the relationship because of co-op and the Schubert, which has been since co-op's inception.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hearing nothing else on this, we'll move into the amendments. And the first one is an amendment with local 3429 paraprofessional money purchase plan. Dr. Finley.
Yes, so this amendment is in the language of the document. In the document attached, you will see new language as it relates to 9.1. And that language speaks to a participant with employment status who has aged, attained age 59 and a half may withdraw from the accounts held on such individual's behalf. Some or the entitled vested value of such accounts determined as of the most recent valuation date. The change in this is they're able to do some or all versus all. So that's the document.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions from the committee? Dr. Yarbrough.
Just a question. Right now, the document says that they can withdraw the entire vested value, which to my mind includes some or all. And my question is, does it need to say some, or can it just say what it says now?
That's something I will have to look into because I wasn't a part of this particular process.
Okay.
So my question would just be, is just more on the fiscal impact. My understanding is that for this pension fund, there's not going to be a fiscal impact directly to the district from this. It's just clarifying that previously they could withdraw the entire value. Now it's saying they can withdraw some or the entire value. But there's not going to be a direct fiscal impact to our budgets because of this change. Is that correct? Does anybody have an answer to that?
That's my understanding, but I can also get clarity.
Okay, we just need to understand that it doesn't seem like there would be, but just want to confirm that that's the case.
And I support what has been stated. I just want to make sure the language that we're agreeing to reflects the intent.
Understood.
Ms. Hannans?
Yes, I don't think there'll be a fiscal impact because at the end of each fiscal year, we pay 2% of their salary, maybe 3, but I think it's still 2, into that particular fund. So if they withdraw, it would be just what they have in there. And we usually get a spreadsheet right to the penny that talks about how much money each person has in the fund at the time that they wish to withdraw.
All right, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And I am looking at the documentation. My other question was along the lines of, and maybe we should, since, I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud here, just as to who is the group or the individuals that make up the governing board. And that just occurred to me while I was looking at this again, and I'm just looking at the documentation to see if it specifies who that is. I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that. It's like
I know a few of the people are from the city. I think Mike Gormany was one of those, and Tom Lamb was our person taking over for Will Clark.
okay, so district has representation on that.
Yes. Yes.
Confirm. Okay. Makes sense. Thank you very much. And just based on your comments, Ms. Hannans, I don't think I need any more confirmation on the lack of fiscal impact to the district. I just was thinking that's what my understanding was previously, and so that confirms it for me. So, all right. Hearing nothing else on this, we will move on to Amendment 6.2, an amendment number 1 to the agreement with Windstream Holdings LLC. Dr. Finley.
Yes, this right here is for amendment to cover the cost of our telecommunication services for 3 locations: Gateway, Wilbur Cross, and Hill Central.
All right, comments or questions related to this? My question is going to be, what's the reason for this? Going back and looking at the previous the root agreement that this is amending, that they were selected off of I want to say it was a state contract. I'm trying to remember if it was a state or a correct contract. So, but I'm just wondering what the reason is for the amount. What has changed since this was approved in late summer or fall that's incurring these extra costs?
Yes, I did connect with our CTO to learn more. From my understanding, we're charged by the minute with this particular contract, but I can do more digging as it relates to this. From my understanding, is to cover the cost for the end of the school year, but I can continue to do more digging if need be related to this particular matter.
Okay, so my request is, and Dr. Yarborough, feel free to jump in here if you want to add to this, but my request is that we have a memo prepared that just explains what the costs were for. And then I also recommend that we, with this item, we link to the route agreement. So if that could be added, Ms. DeMeo, just to make it easier for people that want to dig into this. And if I could request that we have that, so that the committee could take a look at that before Friday's posting for the Board of Ed meeting materials.
I'm sorry.
So yeah, so if we could see that, you know, ideally Thursday, just to make sure that the cover memo makes sense to us, because we might have to be explaining it during the board meeting next week. So that would be great, so that we could take a look at it. So if we have further questions, that we would be able to ask those in time for additions to be added for the Friday posting of the BOE meeting materials. Did that sum it up, Dr. Yarborough, or do you have anything else you'd like to add to that request?
I think nothing to add. I think that definitely helps. I mean, it's almost double the cost. And so I'm curious about what you mentioned. And I'm also curious about what we can do to accurately represent the cost of this coming school year. So that this amendment is, so there won't be an amendment, or if there is one, it's not by as much percentage wise. Yeah. And I guess my understanding, the way this is written, we have not incurred these costs yet, but we've spent the budget that we've agreed to already. I guess if we think about now towards the end of the year. So, okay. But yes, the memo will help as we move this to the board. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess it sums up what's the extra costs? How is it structured in terms of, as you were saying, Dr. Finley, we pay, sounds like we pay for some of this by the minute, because this is telecommunications for these phone systems. So if we could just have an explanation of how this is structured and why this has gone up. I mean, presumably it's because we're utilizing phones more, which I'm hoping is because we're being more responsive to student staff needs. But thank you. And yeah, I think that sums it up for now.
If I could just make one comment before you move on,
Please.
Mr. Wilcock, if you don't mind. I just want to make sure I say this. Our CTO, he is new, so like I did connect with him, and you know he's still learning more as well as relates to this. But we definitely will get the memo out. I just didn't want to leave that open ended as if like I went to him and he didn't know what was going on. No, he's new. We're working through things together. So just wanted to make sure I state that.
Okay, well, here's a good way to jump in, and the faster we see the memo, the faster we'll be able to react to it, and so on. So, but understood your point, Dr. Finley. All right, and moving on to an amendment to the agreement with Smart Start Education, Ms. Joyner.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So the purpose for this amendment, this is, we received the high dosage tutoring grant from the state, and there was the state was a little bit late with letting that, with all the things that were happening. Then there was some confusion as to how the grant was going to be dispersed. So when I was originally talking with Smart Start, I put them on hold, but we started putting the contract together. And then as we started the contract actually back in January. But again, confusion, having to go back, revise, me thinking, oh, well, we haven't gotten our approval yet from the state, so I can't submit the grant yet. But Smart Start understood that from the state that the tutoring itself had to start in January for us. That was a condition of the grant. So they actually sent their tutors out to start. And because I was in talks with them, one of the things that they sent to me in an email was that they understood that payment was contingent upon the final approval from CSDE for the tutoring grant. And again, they didn't want the students to suffer in terms of not having the services. So they started, once we finally were able to put the agreement through, it was March. So the intent of this amendment is to have, but the grant amount, not the grant, the agreement amount did not change. Because like I said, we started in January, we just had to keep pushing the date up. The amount of the agreement didn't change, so this doesn't change anything in terms of our payment. It just moves the date back to start date so that they can actually be paid for the time since they've been doing the tutoring.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions from the committee? Dr. Yarbrough.
And we have these funds now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for your explanation, Ms. Joyner. That explains it. That answered the question that I had. Because as it's written in the description in the amendment, that the words that I clued in on is that the vendor decided that, you know, that let's see here, they went ahead and deployed their tutors, but they also, you all did the work of them understanding that if the funding didn't happen, they were going to be doing that work for us for free.
Right.
And so I'm in support of this because this does not change the it does not change the total amount of funding. Our students had the benefit of this tutoring. If I remember correctly, we looked at this in mid-February. The board, I think, approved it late February for a March start, was I think, if I remember looking at it. So and this seems like another case of CSDs being a little slow on the fund dispersal, which they're busy people, I imagine. Okay, well, I think you answered the questions that I had. And I think it'd be great if in every single contract we have with every vendor is saying that they understand that things are contingent upon the school's board's final approval and the receipt of funds if it's grant funding. And if they do anything ahead of time, they're agreeing that they're working for free. So, so I'm glad. Thank you for ensuring that they were aware of what they were doing in this case.
Thank you.
Right. Hearing and seeing nothing else on this item, we will go ahead and move into a contract, which is renewal of option 1 of 2 of the contract with Utility Communications for on-call security maintenance. Dr. Finley.
Yes, so this contract is related to utility communications for the maintenance of on-call security systems maintenance, inspection, and repair services. We utilize Milestone in our district. That's the system that we use as it relates to our card swipes access. This on-call vendor, they provide services for maintenance, inspections, and repairs of our systems in our district.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions from the committee? And just as a reminder for everyone, they had they won this originally by sealed bid, and the renewal options are that they are agreeing that we want them to continue, and they're willing to continue with the original agreement, the original pricing. So, all right, hearing nothing else, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to move these items, and I move that we send to the board with recommendation to approve these 4 abstracts, 2 purchase orders, 4 agreements, and 3 amendments and 1 contract.
Second.
It's been seconded. Any discussion?
just
Dr.
that, yes, just that what we spoke about, if there's any clarification or document corrections needed, that those will be presented.
Right, so that, yes, the fund correction on the agenda, and then the other one was the requested memo on that one item, and if we don't receive the memo or if it's not adequate for our needs, then we can just move to send this back to committee so that there's more time for it to get it right.
Yes, and one for me was just the language on the vested withdrawal. Just clarification if that's exactly what we want to say.
Okay. If I may ask, what would that look like? The confirmation? Are you requesting just an email that yes, indeed, this is what we need, or a memo, or
Yes.
which
So an email reply to say yes, this is what we want.
Okay.
It has the intended it allows the intended use. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you. All right, hearing nothing else, we'll go ahead and vote. Dr. Yarborough
Yes.
and President Rivera?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so the motion carries. We'll move on into the discussion items. The first is a procurement update. I think when we last spoke, there was a meeting being scheduled between district personnel, the people from the Corporation Counsel's office from the city, and city purchasing to discuss alignment of our route purchasing procurement policy with city purchasing requirements. My question is, I don't know who's going to speak on this item, but just has that meeting occurred or has it been scheduled? Attorney Alexios.
Meeting has not yet occurred. We are working on scheduling, and I think our current tack on it is to work on the papers before we have everyone in the same room in a big meeting.
Okay, so people are working on the drafts and the big meeting will be to review the draft? Okay. And my question is, is the team that's working on the draft been selected or is that in process?
It's in process. We have team members identified.
Okay, team members identified. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions on this item? Okay. It'd be really great if we had a timeline for this at our next meeting as to coming to a resolution of this item. So that's my request for everybody. Some sort of timeline. All right. Hearing nothing else on this, we'll move on to the next one, which is FY25 budget mitigation. So just background on this, we heard last week the Board of Alders passed the city budget, so now we have final numbers there. So the request was for what are we going to do about the gap between what was needed and what is allotted. So all right. Ms. Hannans or Superintendent Negron?
Yes, if I may, we've been doing a lot of work and I want to thank the finance department. As you know, we're up for some challenging times as we knew that we're going to be challenging. We were hoping that they would be less challenging. So now we are still looking to mitigate the deficit. Our CFO, Linda Hannans, is going to walk us through where we are. And I'm hoping that today you'll have a sense of how it is that we are hoping to attack it. Please know that there is no simple solution because as I know we know that the way we are funded, we pay significantly less per pupil than others do across our state. And at the same time, we have a large number of needs that we are trying to meet in terms of our student population. So today, Linda Hannans is going to walk you through where we are and some of our ideas on how it is that we're going to mitigate that large gap. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Linda.
Christine? Well, okay. Okay, Christine, if you can just go to slide number 2. Okay, I wanted to start building this picture by showing you what our initial projections were. So as we all know, in 23-24, we put in a request of 207, and we actually came in at 203, which left us with a difference of $3.8 million. That was, as we all know, that was a real number, and we're still trying to mitigate that number. So now we roll over to 23-24. And again, we started out with the 203, 263, 784. And our new request was 220, 076, 18. There were no, I think there were a couple of new asks in there, but the difference ended up being 16.8. Of that, we received, it was an 8.2% increase. Of that, next slide. Of that, we're looking at the 16,812, which is our deficit. And we have a pending, the mayor's proposal gave us $500,000, $5 million, I'm sorry. So the amount to mitigate ended up being 11.8. And this mitigation plan, it was based on the original fiscal status of the original budget presentation. It does not reflect any unforeseen emergencies, continued increases in our outplacement, nor does it include any increases in utilities, aging building repairs, acts of nature so far. So this proposed budget here just shows you, go back. Oh, okay. So here we have the revenue assumptions, and as you can see, there were basically no changes. We did get the 3.9 that we were expecting from the Alliance. And then also good news today was that we actually got a few more dollars in the interdistrict grant. Now, if you remember where some of our previous financial reports, we said we had lost money in interdistrict due to not hitting our enrollment numbers. So now I was told today that the legislation has been changed, and we are expecting an increase up to 35. But this continues on the fact that we will have reach our enrollment numbers. And then with the tuition billing, we have some plans in place now, which we are working on to do some increases, as well as just working with the other districts to try to come up with fair and equitable numbers. Okay, so this was our proposed 24-25 budget. And you could see where we were going with the 220. And so it shows the same numbers I talked about before, where we needed, the difference was $16 million, 16.8. So it shows you the budget amount and the increase, what we were looking for, and the percentage increase. What our proposed mitigation plan, now that we know what we're actually looking for, was to align the organizational structure to increase efficiency and accountability in support of learning and teaching. The team has been doing an excellent job on right-sizing the district with the staffing model that they are using, which is centered on students and families. We're also looking at grants to fund programs focused on student achievement and supports. We will be evaluating program consolidations and implement wherever feasible. We're maximizing and coordinating available grant funding with general funds, and we're also enhancing our administrative processes and internal controls to improve compliance with policies and procedures. We're also continuing to have aggressive management of custodial staffing plan, food service performance monitoring, and energy costs. And then also we're streamlining operations wherever we can, and we're trying to evaluate and reduce contracts for services and embrace technology wherever we can as well. So when we get to the proposed mitigation plan now, what happens is that, as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to maximize grants. And so far, we're looking at maybe over $2 million that we think we could maximize. We're also having to reduce operations by 619. Our non-instructionals would be reduced by 500,000. Now, keep in mind, these are all reductions. Transportation, we're looking at reducing routes, which may save us $1 million. We're not sure. Keep in mind, these are estimated numbers. And other contractual services, we've looked across the board and we're seeing if we can reduce that by 1.1. And then the realignment and reduction in staff that will account for 61 positions. And right now we're coming in at 6.4. All of these numbers are subject to change, keeping in mind that we're looking for the $11 million decrease. And that's my presentation.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions from the committee? Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes. Thank you for tackling this very real challenge for us, and kind of looking under every stone and also reevaluating every route, not just with transportation, but also within what we do as a district. I have a question about vacancies. Are vacancies a part of, like, existing vacancies? Are they a part of the existing reduction numbers, or
We
not?
do have a few, but they're basically with the right sizing. They've tried to make sure that there's a body in every vacancy. We're trying to use current staff first to make sure if they need to be moved and they have the certification, we're doing that first. So we still have a little bit more work to do on that in that area, but this is where we are right now at this moment.
Thank you. And what you wrote, I'm trying to remember the presentation. I think the second to the last slide, you spoke about maximizing the grants. What does that mean? Are those new grants that we're going for that we think we can get, or what does that mean, please?
We are looking at some new grants, but then we also have, because everything is on the table and we're right sizing the district, what we'll be looking at is the grants that we currently have to see, basically, is there a way that we can maybe restructure them based on the fact that we are right sizing the district. So we can say, you know, we may say, well, can we still cover all of these additional things? And is there a better way to spend our dollars, knowing that we are looking at programs per se?
Thank you.
And that's still a work in process as well.
Thank you. And you mentioned technology efficiencies, or you mentioned technology. And my question is, can we undergo a technology audit? And what I'm particularly thinking about are, and maybe this is not technology, but the software that we use, or the things that we purchase that are subscription-based versus one-time purchases, to see where we can consolidate, integrate, or otherwise reduce any redundancies that might be there, and
Yes.
helps us.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No problem.
What my team, what the finance team has done, besides me, but because I don't like to fly that far, but what the finance team has done is they've gone out. We use Munis, and that is the system that the city uses. So what the team has gone out and done is they've gone to this big conference that they had, I think it was in Indiana, and they looked at all the other things that Munis can do. In terms of payroll, projection reports, reports that we normally may have to wait for. There probably are reports too that we've never even known that were out there that we can use. And you know, while you're using a system that is, run by another department, education may need things that other city departments don't need. Like, we should be able to do encumbrances and a lot of that stuff on Munis. I mean, there are just so many other things out there that we could be using. So that's what we talk about technology. What else is there that we may have to purchase as a package to be added onto Munis? So that's what we're looking at right now.
Thank you.
Ms. Red-Hannons?
Yes, good afternoon. We are looking at several of the purchases that we've made as far as subscriptions during the pandemic and taking a hard look at those, at the software, to see what is still essential. The team started reviewing that information last year to see usage, to see that as a way to mitigate as well.
Great, thank you. And as you were talking, a thought came to mind, and you may already be doing this, but the vendors, either that we've had a long-standing relationship with, or perhaps we've recently invested in them as we invest in the district learning objectives, maybe going back to them and see what we can do on the contract side for these softwares. I am positive that they are earning more from this software as a service than what it actually costs to provide the service. And so they might be able to give an in-kind donation, or they might be able to reduce the amount for 1 year or several years in lieu of us getting rid of them altogether. So maybe if there is, we write to them, the board writes to them, I'm not sure, but if we ask, perhaps they will come back and say, yes, you are our client and we would like to serve you in this way. Might be worth it.
Also, I've had our new purchasing coordinator. That's the vacuum cleaner, I'm sorry. Our new purchasing coordinator, I have asked them to start looking at all of the services that we provide in the district and to put together just spreadsheets of like services or things that schools buy across the board, where you might be buying something, I might be buying something, and maybe we put them together. So there is a work in progress with our new coordinator, who is going to look at all of that and then going to try to get better prices on a lot of these items. And I keep saying it, but he's doing a fantastic job on this project. And he usually comes in and tells me what's going on. But so I see work is being done in that area. But first, we're just trying to track down what have we purchased, and are they the same services, and are they like vendors? Because I'm sure we can get better prices. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I'll just add that, so I license software resources as part of my day job, and the one time I can get them to move on pricing is when I say, okay, I'm going to have to cancel you, so I'm officially notifying you, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, let's talk, let's be creative. So that so I agree, there might be some room for renegotiation or moving forward. Thanks for the comments, everything so far. Thanks for the presentation. Couple things I'd like to note. That when it talks about the staff numbers that was on your slide of the mitigation things, just wanted to confirm the goal there is like through attrition and not through layoffs or anything like that. I know that's the superintendent stated that's her goal. I'm just wanting to confirm that that is indeed the case.
So Mr. Wilcox, noticed as soon as you started speaking, I put my hand up.
Yep.
I anticipated that would be your question. We have looked for months to try to avoid that, looking closer and closer at numbers. You heard Linda Hannon's mention, right? We're trying to fill a lot of those vacancies through the moves that we're making in the right sizing. But at the end of the day, I don't think that is going to be sufficient to get at the dollar amount that we're looking at. So right now, what I'm doing is saying this could be up to a good 60 people or so that we would have to, positions that we would have to identify, ranging from all different categories. What I've been telling the team is I'm trying hardest, right, to avoid touching schools. Through the right-sizing process, we ensure that all of those classroom-facing positions, that we would have a person there, a certified person there. So that's been a lot of that work of the right-sizing. Right now, we're looking at all the other positions that are not necessarily classroom-facing, that are still in the schools. We're looking also at positions that are itinerant, so meaning that they are accounted for here, but in reality, they don't sit here because they get deployed to schools, to service schools. So we are looking at all of them, because somewhere in the total of all of that, as you see, I need to find at least $6.5 million to cover that. But I do fear that it has come to this. I was hoping that we would get a little more, which we didn't. And I mean, I understand the predicament that everybody is in. But again, if we are not properly funded, which we are not, when we go back to that ECS formula, we are not properly funded in the way that we should be funded. And all we have been doing over the years is putting little band-aids on things. And I have to say, ESSER did a lot of great things for this district in being able to continue to have band-aids to put on. But the reality is that now there's nothing to tap into. So it's what you see here, right? Maximizing, optimizing the grants that we do have. But now we have the hard task of the cuts. The cuts are going to have to come because, again, we're looking for $11.8 million. I want to also reiterate that we're looking at the whole list of contractual services. Like, there were a lot of different platforms, right, that we invested in during the COVID era. Great tools that we know support teaching and learning. But we're also looking at that. Like, do we still need those? Maybe we do. Do we have the luxury to keep them? Maybe we don't. Because again, I am going to look at everything. I hate to be the bearer of the bad news. I just feel that I was honest from the moment I was appointed, that this was what I feared, right? Not having the extra dollars to be able to continue to put Band-Aids on. So hard decisions are coming. Our plan is to, next board meeting, be able to give you more clarity, more insight into we are in terms of this proposed mitigation plan, because eventually, right, as the board will have to make some tough decisions in terms of the budget that you will finally approve, so that we can, at the end of the day, continue to do the best that we can for students in the 24-25 school year.
All right, thank you for that. And the numbers are sobering, and so I mean, I understand the point that the goal is to protect classroom-facing positions and do this through attrition and not through layoffs and things. But it's a giant number to have to pull together, and it's not just in that category. The things that that might get glossed over in a presentation, that might be missed from, like by the public who might be viewing this, is that, or reporters, that there's a lot of, if you're going to find $1 million in transportation, that's roughly, I'm trying to remember the number, $85,000 to $90,000 or so per bus route. So that means likely 10, 12, 13 less bus routes, which might mean longer bus rides, might mean longer walks for students, etc. So I mean, that's a real impact. And the more than $600,000 in facilities, which we've heard more than once that our facilities are in a lot of pain in terms of the shape of some of our facilities. And so that's further reducing the amount that's available for services related to keeping them up, not just keeping them looking good in terms of paint and so on, but basic functions such as roof repairs and so on. So that's just further cuts. And so my recommendation is that this is presented to the board, because I know this is a moving target at our next board meeting. Ms. Hannon's talked about the information is becoming available from the state as to what exactly is going to be, or a better idea of what the Alliance funding is going to be. And then I request when the Alliance funding is presented that we also have a reminder of Alliance funding is wonderful. Every dollar is a good thing. We certainly need it and can use it, but it's also every dollar has to fit into the requirements of the Alliance grant, which is not necessarily where we need to spend the money just to meet our basic needs. And so just a reminder, because I hear from some that, well, we're going to have extra money in this. And it's like, yes, it's extra money in this category, but it's not extra money that we can spend to protect these positions or to protect having an assortment of after school or summer programs necessarily. It has to fit into the program, and it's not, I'm sure I'm not completely knowledgeable on it, but it seems kind of patriarchal to me in a sense, which is, districts can't decide how they need to spend the funds. I understand that that's not the case, but that's on the surface, it seems to me. The other thing I would request when you present is just what the timeline is going to be. I'm assuming we're trying to pass a budget before the end of June. And in the past, sometimes we've had to have special meetings. So if you could just advise, it would probably be easier if we're going to have a special meeting sometime in the last week of this month in order to pass a budget. We might want to get that scheduled. Hopefully we could do it by the last full board meeting, but understanding that we might not be able to. The final thing that I would just say is just the reminder to everybody. I know the people on this call don't need it, but the people in the audience might. This is also with the background of things like our staffing guidelines report that staff worked hard on and then updated it again this year. This does not put a librarian in every library. This does not put enough tutors, language teachers, behavioral specialists, psychologists, counselors, social workers. This is not anywhere meet those needs. And so I think we need to listen to, it was our Teachers Union President, Ms. Blateau, that talked about the need that we need to have focused efforts at the state level, because this is one of the richest states in the country. And they need to more equitably continue their efforts to more equitably fund education in this state. Because we've seen on this call today, high special education costs. Every district has special education costs, but it's the large cities tend to be where there's more students, more people, more needs, more English language learners, more multi-language learners that we have, more refugees, more homeless as a greater percentage in all these categories. So I'm really hoping that we can work together with the other large districts and all school districts to really make the case of more equitable funding for education in Connecticut. We do better than so many states, but it's not nearly enough. Any other comments or questions on this item, Dr. Negron?
Mr. Wilcox, I just wanted to reiterate again that the allocation for, as it relates to ECS Alliance grant, the Alliance, that number has already been confirmed. That is the number that we're getting. That's that 3.9 increase.
Okay.
So on that, the slide that Linda shared today, that 26.476 million, that does include that 3.9 Alliance.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for clarifying for the public. It isn't like we can say, hey, let me grab that 3.9 and put it all in my budget mitigation. That is not how it works. So we can't even, again, use that 3.9 in that form. The other piece that I wanted to also clarify, as you're clarifying for the public, is when we noted or increase in interdistrict grant, which again, we're very grateful for, that in essence, we're getting a little over $5 million increase in there. Again, that is a grant. That doesn't mean that I can take that $5 million increase again and put it towards the budget mitigation. Because all of that has to go, as indicated in that grant, right, into district magnets and the programming that comes into those magnets and running those programs. But yes, we will bring you more updates to the next board meeting, and hoping that we can get closer and closer to having our budget approved at the end of June.
Thank you. Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, thank you. I would like clarity on something that was mentioned in terms of there's an increase in funding, but it comes with an increase in the number of students enrolled. And we will be obligated to meet that number, that higher number. I just wanted to understand more about that relationship, perhaps what that enrollment number is, and does us reaching that enrollment number exceed the financial benefit? Is it going to cost us more than the increase that is attached to it?
So I'm happy to start, and then I'll let Linda kind of fill in any gaps that I may leave. But again, going back to the interdistrict grant, right now, based on our enrollment, the number of kids that we are pulling in, right, from other areas, based on that number and the calculations of the number of kids that we will have, that is where that increase is being projected. That is how we are getting that $5 million extra that I just mentioned is coming out of that projected enrollment. If for some reason, right, these out-of-district families decide, I kind of thought it over again, not going, and that number seriously reduces in terms of that enrollment, that means that number, that 5 million will possibly no longer be there. Which means we still have to provide for interdistrict magnet programming. And I know that this year it became very difficult because we didn't even have enough inside of that grant to cover all costs. Correct, Linda?
Correct.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, what they'll do is they'll do what's called a prior year adjustment. So if they see that you didn't meet your requirement, they will, like adult ed, they'll make an adjustment to reduce the amount to what you actually earned based on your enrollment. The same thing would be with some of our grants like Title I and grants like that. They're based on free and reduced lunch, and then we do rank and serve. So if we have less students, we will be affected as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox.
Thank you. Just in parting, I'll just say that there was an excellent article posted today at ctpublic.org called "The End of Pandemic Funding Could Spell Disaster for Some Schools." It was Jessica Harkey from ctmirror.org who wrote the article, and it gets into not only do they discuss issues in New Haven, but also Waterbury, Hartford, and Bridgeport. And it's a nice lengthy article that kind of gets into the weeds on some of this and how these how different districts are being affected in different ways because of their different needs. But they do cover the larger school districts, and so highly recommend that. It was just posted today at ctpublic.org. So I think that's the end of this item. It's the end of the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Right, it's been seconded. Dr. Yarborough, how do you vote?
Yes.
President Rivera?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for all the work.
Good night.
Good night.